Well, good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining us. I think you're really going to enjoy the program we have for you this evening. Our guest speaker tonight is Paul Nistico, and Paul's a longtime birder, grew up in Pennsylvania, and he lives now in Florida with his wife, Patsy. I first saw Paul on a Zoom presentation he did for his local birding group. And I said, wow, I wonder if he would do a presentation for us. And obviously he's graciously said yes. So I'm very grateful for that. And things you should know about Paul, he's quite knowledgeable. He's been a birder for 46 years and his experience is very evident. Also, he's a wonderful photographer. Both in the quality of the photos, and then he's also amassed an ABA list of 681 species photographed for North America, which puts him quite high on the ABA all-time list. So tonight, Paul's going to share with us photos and highlights from his 2016 birding trip he and Patsy took to Belize, which should be quite fun. And so with that, I'd just like to say thank you, Paul, and turn the program over to you.
Okay, you have to remind me again how I do this. You're gonna give me the con here.
Yeah. And you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, share screen, got it. Here I am. There, how's that look?
Looks good.
Okay, and I want to probably take all these pictures out of here. Maybe I'll take them all out. You don't have to see my pretty face while you're. Oh, this got enlarged, didn't it? Oh, there we go. This is the right size now. So here we are, Belize, birding in the land of the Mayas. So everybody hear me on everything okay? Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, good deal. So I won't go into any more of our background. Your wonderful article in the Pygmy Owl talked about how we came to this point. We're North American birders largely, but in 2010, a trip to Panama whetted our appetite for tropical birds. And so in 2016, we decided to try again. And this time we chose Belize because we had heard about this wonderful eco lodge there that provides guides for you. So we chose Belize in 2016. I'll give you a little bit of background on the history of Belize. Mayan civilization existed there for about 2,500 years. The high period was in the middle centuries of the first millennium AD, about 200 to 900 AD. Geographically, we're talking southern Mexico, the Yucatan, Guatemala, Belize, a little bit of Nicaragua, Honduras. Towards the end of the first millennium, city-states began to decline. There's various theories why this happened. No one is for sure why, but when the conquistadors come from Spain in the 16th century and claimed the area for Spain and put an end to the Mayan civilization, they were simply putting a period at the end of a sentence that had already been written for the Mayans, I'm afraid. After some negotiations, England took over this area and established the colony of British Honduras in 1862. And then in 1981, it became the free nation of Belize. So Belize today, it's a very small country, about the size of New Jersey. Population around 360,000, which is about the same as Tampa, Florida. So if you take the people of Tampa, Florida, and spread them out across New Jersey, you get the least populated Central American nation, which is great for ecotourists because then you've got a lot of territory and not many people on it. It's culturally diverse: Spanish, English, mestizo, you know, mixed blood, Spanish and Indians, and Mayans. And if English is the official language, then Spanish, and 10% of the population identify as ethnic Mayans and still speak Mayan. I wondered how they knew these Mayan words like Chanchits, the lodge where we're going to stay. Turns out there are people there walking around speaking Mayan. I thought they had found a Rosetta Stone out in the rainforest, but they didn't need to do that. Okay, so here we are, the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, and on the southeast corner, you see the green country there of Belize, bordered on the north by Mexico, and then on the west by Guatemala, and largely on the east and south by the Gulf of Mexico. And 6 districts in the country. Here in the middle, Belmopan is the capital, but it's a relatively small town, I understand. Belize City over here on the coast is the big city where the big jets fly in. So that's where you enter and exit the country. We're gonna focus up here on this orange territory in the northwest corner, Orange Walk. I'm gonna zoom in on Orange Walk, and if you look on the western side here, you'll see Gallon Jug about in the middle near the Guatemala border. That's about a 35,000 acre estate, ranching and farming. And Chanchits, the lodge, is located on that estate. And so that's where we spend most of our time. Now from Belize City over here on the coast to Chanchits would be a very uncomfortable and long bus ride. So Patsy and I treated ourselves to a private plane transportation. It's a little pricey, but to go, it's only a half-hour flight from the airport in Belize City to the airstrip in Gallon Jug. So let's get started. Day 1. Here we are leaving March 7, 2016, leaving Miami. It's a 2.5-hour flight. Oh, see, this picture makes me angry. You can't beat my wife to look at a field guide and study a field guide. And then here she is at the airport, all innocence, butter would melt in her mouth. Here I am studying the field guide. Don't believe a word she says. This is a fraud. So taking the plane, here we are arriving off the coast, those little islands off the coast of Belize. Very lovely. It's a small country, but you can imagine it has different habitats. Largely, we're in one habitat over on the Guatemala side, and it would be nice to see the coastal parts of Belize and the islands, but that'll be for another trip. So we arrive at Belize City, and we had contracted with Javier Flying Service, and Mark is our pilot, and he greeted us in the airport, took us through customs and baggage, and got us out to his little airplane, and even takes a picture of the smiling couple about to start an adventure. But I'll tell you the picture that perhaps is more telling. This one here, this is the smallest airplane ever invented. And the front seats are okay for the pilot and the co-pilot. In the back is just stowage of bags, and I'm in the back there. I'm stowed away with the other bags, and really cramped back there. So we take off from Belize City. Patsy's helping Mark fly the plane. Mark's checking in with me. How you doing back there, Paul? I'll tell you, Mark, I'd be screaming, but my diaphragm has been crushed up into my throat here. So I'm mute, but doing okay. So we get closer to Gallon Jug and we see for the first time the Chanchich River, from which our lodge takes its name. And we land on a little grass airstrip and are picked up by personnel from the lodge. And we see for the first time the symbol of the lodge, the long-billed hermit hummingbird. So we arrived back at Chanchich. Chanchich means little bird in Mayan, and they didn't have to have a Rosetta Stone. Mayan told them that that's what it is. Here's the office, but this veranda is where much of our activity takes place. We eat there and visit there and photograph from there. They had lunch for us, saved a lunch for us. And sitting at this lunch table on the veranda can look down the trails towards the cabanas. And you see the general look of the place is lush, beautiful tropical growth. And this is wonderful, right across from where we were sitting. And we return to the same table every day because right across from us was this wonderful, wonderful water feature. That little pool at the bottom is only about at most 3 feet across, 2 feet by 3 feet perhaps, but there's water trickling down over the rocks and lush foliage all around it. And it was just wonderful, attractant for birds, as water features tend to be. Up on the veranda itself, there were hanging hummingbird feeders, and the first hummingbird we see is the symbol of the lodge, the long-billed hermit. Used to be called long-tailed hermit, and you can see it's long at both ends. It's a big hummingbird, but not a sparkler like so many hummingbirds are. Here's a sparkler, little rufous-tailed hummingbird. They were also coming to the feeder there. But the bully of the feeders, the biggest and perhaps the most aggressive hummingbird is the white-necked Jacobin. And they sort of rule those feeders, but you have to forgive them their aggressiveness. Look at that. They're all sapphire and emerald and that beautiful white abdomen. They're something. So the water feature began to kick in now. A little female yellow warbler came in and bathed for a while. And then right across from us, a pair of masked titiras came in. This was a great bird. The whole week we were there, we saw one other pair of masked titiras. They were flying overhead and gone. And so to get one this close was just a great shot. You see them at eye level. It's so wonderful when you're photographing from the veranda. You're at eye level with birds sitting above that water feature. So they took us back to our cabana, and you see it's a palm thatched roof and has a lovely little sitting area outside. When you're sitting there, this is what you're looking at, this mound. Chanchich is built on the plaza of an ancient Mayan city, and all around the edges of it, the perimeter, there are these mounds of unexcavated ruins. I was interested in what was inside there. I felt like going out at night digging to see if there was gold there or something, but it's really amazing that they haven't done more excavation. So inside the cabana, you've got a palm thatched roof and these open windows, no air conditioning, but beautiful breeze generally flowing through, and its windows open like this on all sides. You have to, if you're going to take a nap in the afternoon, you have to put something over your eyes because it's always light in the cabana. So we go after a little nap, we take our first walk around the compound, expecting to see exotic species. And the first bird we come to is a bird that we see every single day here in Central Florida, the little blue heron. And then gray catbird, of course, in the wintertime, they winter here in good numbers, and I guess all the way down through Central America. Was numerous there around Chanchich also. On that first afternoon, we had about 4 or 5 wood thrushes, and then we never saw another one. So I guess they were perhaps staging for migration and beginning their long migration north in March. The black-cheeked woodpecker is the most common woodpecker there. And another common bird, clay-colored robin, which I think they call clay-colored thrush now. These are becoming more easily seen in South Texas. I think the last time we were in the lower Rio Grande Valley, we picked up 3 or 4 of these. Used to be very rare there. All throughout the compound, there are these roving bands of ocellated turkeys. Beautiful iridescent bird. I guess the ocellated is because there's some spots on the tail which look like eyes. And they have these warty heads. A friend of mine in the villages who's an ornithologist, when he saw that we had picked up ocellated turkey, he said, well, you can cancel the turkey family off of your wanted list because there's only 2 turkeys in the world, wild turkey and ocellated turkey. So we've seen them all now. So sunset falls to our cabana, and as it's getting dark, we began to hear howler monkeys sounding off all around the perimeter of the compound. And we knew from our time in Panama that this normally presages rainfall. And so sure enough, about 10 minutes after the howlers, darkness fell, so did the rain. And it rained substantially that evening. Fortunately for us, it never rained again during our trip. Regrettably, we never heard howler monkeys again. It's quite an experience to hear those. So Belize day 2, our first day of birding with the guides. There are various packages that you can select, and we had selected one with unlimited guide service. So every day we had a guide, a bird guide, and they are excellent. They're very good. So we wake up the next morning. Because of the rain the night before, it was rather foggy, but this was the only morning that was like that. When it didn't rain, it didn't have fog. We meet our first guide, Gilberto, here in the compound. He's going to show us around the compound. We met him at 6:20 a.m. and he's very good, like all these guides. And so we began, because it was foggy overhead, we began looking down, and first thing we came to was some leafcutter ants. They're amazing. Look at the mouth on that bird, that ant in the center, and then the one in the foreground is carrying a piece of leaf that's larger than he is. Interesting. So eventually we could look up and see what was up there. The first bird we saw was ringed kingfisher. If you've been down again to the lower Rio Grande Valley, you may have seen some of these. They're really big, massive.
Beautiful scenery.
Say,
It's a kingfisher.
oh my gosh.
It's a kingfisher.
Okay. Little larger than a belted kingfisher. And then Plumbeous kite, I think, is named for the lead-colored breast there on the kite, Plumbeous. And then Gilberto introduced us to custard apples. These are, they're sort of mushy inside. I think in historic times, some of them grew here in South Florida, but I don't believe we have any custard apples in the United States these days. But the local inhabitants use them in cooking and baking, and all the birds go to them. They're a great attractant for birds. Here's that black-cheeked woodpecker again, pecking into a custard apple. And this is a black-headed saltator, member of the tanager family. I'll blow up on his face, and you can see that he can't talk to you right now. His mouth is full of custard apple. They really, some of these birds chow down on it. This is an interesting concept here. I took this picture of a golden-fronted woodpecker in South Texas. You can see why it's called golden-fronted. Melanurpes orifrons. Melanurpes, a genus of woodpeckers, orifrons golden-fronted. So I get to Belize, and here's their golden-fronted woodpecker, Melanurpes orifrons. It's just a different race completely. But you can imagine Belizeans saying, hey, why do they call it golden-fronted woodpecker? It doesn't have any golden front. So Gilberto takes us under these big Cahoon palm fronds, biggest palm fronds I've ever seen, absolutely enormous. Down this trail, there's a little small compound where the employees of Chanchites have their cottages, and it's good birding. I guess Gilberto lives there too. And it's good birding around there, and he shows us some good things. I bitterly regret that this was the first and last look at a crimson-collared tanager. I got this one shot and then gone, and never got a better shot. He is such a magnificent bird, and I'd do anything to have gotten a better shot. The big pale-billed woodpecker, a little bit smaller than a pileated, but not much. Big guy. Every time I walked down this way, I saw him on the same tree. Finally got this photograph, and I realized why he's on that tree. He's got a nest hole there. There are about 4 large parrots in Belize, but only one parakeet, and that's this one here, the olive-throated parakeet. Red-legged honey creeper, beautiful tropical bird. They'd seen them in Panama. That cobalt blue on them is a mile deep. And the big squirrel cuckoo, it's a big bird, 16 to 20 inches long. Of course, a lot of that is the tail, but that's still a very, very large cuckoo. I guess a roadrunner is larger, and they're cuckoos, but it's a big bird. Pretty bird. And then a real sparkler of a trogon. The gartered trogon was called violaceous when we were there looking at it. Now gartered trogon. Smaller, about 7-8 inches. Most of the trogons are 9 to 12 inches. So this one's small. While we're watching it, it flew to a clothesline that was stretched between 2 of the cottages, and gave us this beautiful shot. One of my favorite birds of the whole trip. He's lovely. And the fact that he's a little smaller makes him appealing. Okay, so we said goodbye to Gilberto. We're back for breakfast. Remember, we started at 6:20. Now it's about 8:30, 9 o'clock, and we're having breakfast on the veranda, and right across from us, above the water feature, flies this black-cowled oriole, and gives us a nice shot. And then, wow, a pair of golden-hooded tanagers fly in. These are really pretty birds, and used to be the symbol of Victor Emmanuel Nature Tours. I think he has a new symbol now. He fired the tanagers. They're special. We never saw another pair after this. We never saw another golden-hooded tanager. We were lucky to get this. After breakfast, we took a little walk and found this bird that is really hard to see in the United States. We got our life bird. This is a white-collared seed eater. We got our life bird near Laredo, Texas, but you got to be close to the Rio Grande to see these. And down here, they're easy and numerous. Here in this grassy area where this bird was, there were another 20 or so white-collared seed eaters in the lawn there. Nice bird. And then Louisiana water thrush, bird that used to sing in the creeks behind our house in Maryland in the nesting season. You see that big broad white supercilium and the bubblegum pink legs and the thick bill for a warbler. Tell you it's a Louisiana. So then we hook up with Raul. He's going to be our guide for the next 2 days. And like all these guides, he's excellent. The only thing is, you got to convince them that you're a serious birder. I asked Raul, I said, all these people here I see carrying binoculars. How many of these people are serious birders like we are? He said, oh, less than 10%. So, everybody, I guess these guides are used to showing those people the big colorful birds, and little brown jobs like birders like to see. They don't bother with those people. So you have to convince them you're serious, and then they're great guides and really good. So he takes us out to Gallon Jug and the little town of Silvestri. Wooden Catholic church there, made of wood, and some clothes drying on the line, like when I was growing up. A lot of our clothes got dried. We began seeing birds of field and pasture. This is a tropical kingbird, like you can sometimes see in southeast Arizona. They also had Couch's kingbirds there, and I'll be honest, I can't tell them apart. Their song is different. I think that's how the locals can tell them apart. A tropical mockingbird doesn't look too different from our northern mockingbird. It's another bird that's hard to find in Texas along the Rio Grande, the big brown jay. It's really like a magpie-shaped jay, long, big. And of course, there's a lot of cattle ranching there, so you have a lot of cattle egrets. It's on the east coast of South America, so the meadowlarks are eastern. And it's a beautiful fork-tailed flycatcher. These are really magnificent birds. Over the years, Patsy and I have caught up with 2 of these in the US, one in Virginia and one in Florida. So they're vagrants here in the US. The very strange groove-billed awney you can see in South Texas. These are cuckoos also, and just a strange looking bird. Primitive, I guess, is how it strikes me. Heading back towards the compound now, we're doing some birds of the forest, and we found this laughing falcon, large falcon. Didn't hear it vocalize, so I can't tell you how it laughs. And one of my favorites, the roadside hawk. These are small buteos, about the size of a broad-winged hawk in the eastern United States. Why are they a favorite of mine? I'll tell you. Here's a nice shot of a roadside hawk. Nicer shot of a roadside hawk. Here's a great shot of a roadside hawk. I like birds that are cooperative. Roadside hawks sit along the roadside, as their name implies, and you can pull your car up pretty close and take shots of them like this. So any bird that's that cooperative is a friend of mine. Back in the compound that afternoon, I took a walk, and I like tropical foliage, but particularly I've always thought bananas are so exotic. I love seeing bananas and how they grow in the tropics. Blue bunting. Here's a bird that Patsy and I have chased around South Texas. Never came up with one. They do extrude up into very southmost Texas. There's a family of tropical birds, unique family of tropical birds called wood creepers. I think they're gleaners, not like woodpeckers that drill holes. They just glean off of the bark. And they range this is the smallest one. It's called the wedge-billed wood creeper. And then the biggest ones are up nearly a foot long. This is only about 6 inches long. I'm going to blow up here on his tail. You can see the rather strange mechanism he uses to help him climb the trees. Of course, our woodpeckers have a similar thing, but it's a different kind of system for supporting them. And while I'm walking around there, I see a shadow overhead, and I look up, and this bird is coming in to perch. It's a crested guan, and guans are a tropical family. They look like chickens or turkeys, but they're not. They're not related at all to our gallinaceous birds. I'll blow up on the face here for you. You can see he's pretty wattle and red iris. It's an interesting bird, but they're all in a family by themselves. Day 3, we still have Raul taking us out. He starts us at a shade coffee plantation. There's the shade coffee. You know, I drink coffee through Keurig cups, and I want to be a good environmentalist. I don't know that they make shade coffee in Keurig cups. I'll have to look into that, because that's a good thing to buy. So we arrive at a trail, and this was a great trail. And we walked down this trail, and it produced a lot of birds for us. First thing we found was an eastern wood pewee. This is a little less vested than some eastern wood pewees. You know, they can have strong vesting, like the western wood pewee. And then a great kiskadee, like you can hear and see in South Texas. If you've ever seen them in Texas, they have a call, kiska, kiska, kiskadee, kiskadee. And here's a plain little bird, the thrush-like chiffornis. I don't know anything about this bird, but I'll tell you, this is the litmus test. When you show excitement about seeing the thrush-like chiffornis, that's when the guide knows for sure that you're a serious birder, because this is a plain little fella, just about as plain as they come. One of those larger wood creepers I mentioned, 10 or 11 inches, maybe the ivory-billed wood creeper. A little white-collared manakin. Manakins are from the name comes from the Dutch, means little man. And they're most famous because the males do these bizarre dances as part of their courtship rituals. You may have seen videos of male mannequins dancing. So we're driving back towards the compound now, and we came across a gray hawk, small buteo, like the roadside hawk. You see them in southeast Arizona, but they're nice birds. And then he took us to a couple woodland paths where we were looking for a couple of special birds, and we found both of them here. This is the white-whiskered puffbird, and puffbirds tend to be large, about 8, 10, 12 inches even for the largest ones. This guy's only about 6 inches, and I don't know. We saw him in the field guides. We wanted to see one, and it was difficult for first couple of days. We couldn't find one, and then we did find this one. And the other one we wanted to see was a rufous-tailed jacamar. That's another unique family of tropical birds. These guides, I don't know if they carry iPods or use iPhones ever to track birds, but they don't need to. They all are excellent whistling imitators of these birds. Everywhere we stopped, Raul would make this shrill whistle. That's the call of the jacamar. And it was nothing, nothing, nothing. We stopped here, and he made that whistle, and out came this jacamar singing. And when the jacamar called, he made the exact same shrilled whistle. It sounded exactly like what Raul did. Amazing what they could do. Beautiful bird, iridescent, and of course he's called rufous-tailed. So we're back at the compound, and I'm doing listing. Every birder knows what I'm doing there, checking off the list. You see what's in front of me here, Coca-Cola and water. The one thing, the food is pretty good there, which is good because there's no restaurants around. The food is pretty good, but the food comes with a package, but they want you to buy wine extra. An extra expense, and Patsy and I are not big wine drinkers, so Unfortunately, the only alternative was Coca-Cola and water. And I'm a fanatic about iced tea, and they didn't have iced tea. I complained about that a bit. So sitting across from that water feature, again, it's just wonderful. Here's a male orchard oriole bathing in the water, that tiny little pond, a puddle, and then a male Baltimore oriole. It's a strange plumage. Apparently they keep this, males keep this subadult plumage into their second autumn, which means their second summer. I would have seen them in this plumage at one time or another, but I don't recall ever seeing one like this. The common basilisk lizard, this is also called the Jesus Christ lizard because he runs on water. We didn't see that in Belize, but I did see one running up a creek in Panama on a previous trip there. So after lunch, we begin walking around the compound again. The list of the compounds says that the commonest Empidonax flycatcher is the least flycatcher, but this guy's got an awfully broad bill for a least. I don't know. I called it a least at the time, but I look at it now, I think maybe it was a willow or something with a larger, broader bill. Not sure, you know, how Empidonax flycatchers are. If they're not singing, you're in trouble. Social flycatcher, these are common birds all throughout the compound. You know how I like the roadside hawk because he was cooperative and posed for pictures. Well, social flycatchers win the same prize. Pose and give you pictures like this. It's wonderful. So that evening, we did our first night trip. You have to pay extra for night drives, but we were eager to do one. And Raul is in the front with a big bright spotlight, and we're sitting on sort of an open bed, like the back of a pickup truck. And first thing he spots are these cane toads. These are huge, huge toads, 6, 7 inches easily, maybe 2 or 3 pounds. They were imported to eat insects in the cane fields. And like most introductions, they've gone bad. They find that they eat other amphibians and they eat snakes and birds and much more than what they were originally intended to eat. And they'd like to get rid of them now, but you can't. So the moral is don't introduce things. Yellow-crowned night heron. My goodness, night herons do go out at night and walk these agricultural fields. The one of the caprimulgids, goats or nightjars that they have there is called the northern potu or potu. Fairly common at night. An unusual looking bird. And wow, I like this picture. This is a mottled owl. We saw 4 or 5 mottled owls on this first night drive. And I got this picture. I like this. When you take a picture of an owl in the daytime, you know, the light is good and you see a lot of things on it. You see features, but when you take a picture of an owl at night, when you enter his world, it's really magic. And this gives you the sense of entering the owl's world. Okay, day 4. Day 4 was a big day for us. We purchased a special trip, an all-day trip to go to some Mayan ruins up in the northern part of the country. So we traveled from early in the morning along Orange Walk, the Guatemala border, and then along the Mexican border, all the way up to the northern part of the country. We catch a boat south on the New River to the Mayan ruins at Lamani, and then the vehicle picks us up again at the bottom of that, and we start a southerly route back to the compound. So we got started early in the morning before they were serving breakfast, but they made some coffee and pastries available to us. And we meet Marvin, who's going to be our guide for the last 2 days of our trip. And like all these guides, he is excellent, really excellent. I was sorry to lose Raul because he was so good, but Marvin was just as good. But like all these guides, you got to convince them that you're serious. So we're driving out of the compound. We drive over the little bridge over the Chanchich River. And I heard Marvin quietly say, "Oh, it's a tiger heron." Tiger heron? I got excited. I said, "Tiger heron?" He said, "Oh, you want to see tiger heron?" "Yeah, heck yeah. We want to see them, everything. We're birders." So he pulls over and we get to see the tiger. It turned out it was a life bird. We had seen rufescent tiger heron in Panama, but this is a bare-throated tiger heron. I'd never seen one of these. And so now Marvin says, "Well, if you're birders, would you like to see a toady motmot?" I said, "Yeah, that's a good bird because they're, of all the motmots, it's the least colorful, the smallest and most uninteresting, but he's rare. He's harder to find and harder to see." So he knew a place where we could get toady motmot. I think he whistled for it, called one up with his imitation that he can do. And you see they're really plain, a little green patch on the eye and a little green in the back, but very plain. While we're looking at that, there were some spider monkeys overhead. When I took this photo, I thought it was one monkey, but actually, of course, there's a mother and a brown back youngster clinging to mom's back. On the road, we would be seeing these coatimundis or coatis in the raccoon family, I gather. And we were stopping. I mean, we had a mission to get to that boat, but we had plenty of time and we were stopping here and there. This is a black-headed trogon, black-headed trogon, a little larger than our gartered trogon, but very pretty, striking. And yeah, greenish Alania, which is in the tyrant flycatcher family. Beautiful collared Aracari. Some people say Aracari, but it's really got a cedille under the sea, making the sea soft. Birds with that sea cedille that pronounced soft, most of those birds, their family was named in Brazil, where they speak Portuguese. Aracari is a Portuguese word, and it's a soft language. If you know bossa nova, you know how soft Portuguese can sound. Red-billed pigeon. We got one of these in the United States in the lower Rio Grande Valley, but it's a nice bird. Here's that olive-throated parakeet again. You see, it's really a misnomer. Should be called olive-breasted, but who am I to say? Female Baltimore Oriole. And oh, wow, we're getting into some agricultural pastures, and we come to this male vermilion flycatcher. Fantastic little bird. We passed through the colorful town of San Felipe, and it's in the sugarcane area of Belize, and these big trucks were lumbering down the highway with sugarcane packed to the gunnels, or in this case, above the gunnels. So we arrive at the little place where we're picking up our boat, and we're introduced to Nathaniel, who goes by Nate, and he's going to be our guide for the afternoon. So as we're approaching this spot, Marvin says, "Oh, Nate's got a fast boat. He'll get you up the river real fast." I said, "Wait, time out. I don't want to go up the river fast. I want to go as slow as we can go and see birds along the way. Is Nate a good birder?" "Oh, yeah, he's good. He knows birds." Well, then tell him if he wants a good tip, we want to see birds. We don't want to go fast. So he talked to Nate. Nate was great. Everything was wonderful. He is a good birder. He's a good bird guide and a good Mayan guide. So it was a wonderful afternoon spent with Nate. Here's the new river, rather wide at this point. And then we liked, of course, the quiet little side passages where we could get closer to the trees and the birds. And Nate was good pointing them out. Some people taking their goods down to market, hopefully not illegal narcotics. Fishermen, you hold your hand up and fishermen are always happy to show you their catch. And hey, we saw that adult yellow-crowned night heron in the night drive the night before. Here's a sub-adult yellow-crowned. Boat-billed heron. We were excited to see this. I think we had maybe seen one in Panama. This was a life photograph, though. And the northern Jasana is another one of those C-cedille Brazilian birds. Jasana. Some people say Hakana, thinking it's Spanish, but it's Jasana. Look at those big toes for spreading out and walking on lily pads. In Africa, the African version of this is called the lily trotter in this same family. These were, when Patsy and I began birding, they were more commonly seen in Texas. There was an area where you could go in Texas and see these, but that by the time we got serious in our birding, they were gone from there, and we never got a chance to see one in North America. Mangrove swallows, pretty. I like tree swallows somewhat. Olivaceous cormorant. I'll blow up on the face here of the olivaceous cormorant. You can see the white margin to the gular patch. He's much smaller than a double. I'll get something out of here. Okay. Much smaller than the double-crested cormorants. Another way you can tell, long tail and smaller. Lesser nighthawk. Now we have common nighthawks in the east, but down here in the tropics, lesser nighthawks, you Washingtonians must have lessers out there in your end of the country. And the beautiful green kingfisher. They're charming little guys. And with that big head and the big bill, they look like toys of some sort. Really, really cute. So we get to Lamini, which apparently means submerged crocodile. Mayan is a very efficient language. Apparently 3 short syllables means submerged crocodile. Nate takes the boat and parks the boat. His wife is prepared as a picnic lunch. So the first thing we do when we get there is eat lunch. And as we're eating lunch, a little northern water thrush is walking around under the tables, picking up scraps of food that have been dropped. I guess he's the Belizean house sparrow. But it was cute to see one so close. So we arrive at the temples, and I took this trip, of course, because I wanted to get away from the Chanchich compound and see different birds, different parts of the country. But I have to admit, these ruins are impressive. I had never done this. I had never gone to Central American ruins before. This is called the Jaguar Temple. And here's Nate showing Patsy that, in fact, the archaeologists can tell this was built, I don't know, 1,500 years ago, and was very small. And then some hundreds of years later, there was a construction project, and they expanded it. Hundreds of years later, they expanded it again into what we see today. Also, I believe he told her that this color, this sort of salmon colored, pink sort of color, was how they painted them. You imagine building these things and then painting them. incredible. This is the back of that jaguar temple, just huge, massive. And it's all made of very small stones too. It's a ball court. We don't know what the rules of the game are, but they played some sort of ball here, perhaps like lawn bowling or something. And here's the high temple. This is the largest of the temples there. Give you a perspective. This is Nate and I at the bottom looking up at this guy. Really impressive. As I said, these things are really made from small stones. Very, very impressive. And here we are walking up to a small temple called the Temple of the Masks. You can see on either side, there are these carvings that look like masks, and very interesting. And Nate was very, very informative, very well versed on his ancestors. So this is what the paths look like there. And of course, we're birding all along. Nate was good showing us birds. He found us this boat-billed flycatcher. It's like a kiskadee, but with a big canoe-shaped bill. The most common warbler there was hooded warbler. Must have been about 15 the day while we were there walking around there. This is an old friend of ours from where we lived in Southern Maryland. Southern Maryland is boggy bottomlands mostly. A lot of barred owls, and the nesting habitat is perfect for hooded warblers. So in the spring and summer, we always had hoodies around our neighborhood. So we get picked up by Marvin, and we're coming back into the Chanchich by the southern route, pass through some cattle country, sorghum. I'm trying to think of that stuff. Sorghum. There's sorghum in the background. This is a plain-breasted ground dove, little guy. Blue-black grassquit. Grassquits look like sparrows. They act like sparrows, but apparently they're thinking they should be assigned to the tanager family. And chachalaca, plain chachalaca. If you've been to South Texas, you couldn't miss these guys or miss hearing them. They're loud calls. Chachalaka, chachalaka, chachalaka. And this is a huge bird. He must have been 150 yards away, but a Jabiru stork, probably one of the largest birds of its kind in North America, stands about 5 feet tall and has a wingspan of 8 or 9 feet. Really an enormous, enormous stork. Overhead, we had white-tailed kites. Sometimes get them here in Florida, but not too often. And we were looking for keeled-billed toucans. We were glad to see some because while we had seen these in Panama, this is the national bird of Belize. Belize's bald eagle. So we wanted to see their national bird while we were there. Beautiful bird. Getting dark as we get back towards the compound, and you can tell it's dark. Photography not so great. We came upon these javelina hogs, and we call them collared peccaries in English. And they walked off into the woods, and Marvin said, let's wait for a while. So we waited there about 15 minutes. Then we finally drove on. He said, sometimes jaguars follow these packs of javelinas. And he said he has actually waited behind javelina hogs and watched a jaguar walk out onto the road, sniffing the ground where the javelinas were. But we had no such luck. You can't, it's really of course, that's the sighting of all sightings is a jaguar here. We didn't see one. You don't go looking for them. You just spend time out there and boom, you happen upon them. Day 5 is our last full day of birding here. And it started rather badly. They couldn't find the keys to the car. And so Marvin said, well, I'll take you around the compound. And we thought, oh, That's not good because we had seen the birds of the compound. Well, of course, Marvin found lots of birds that we hadn't seen. White-throated robin was a new bird for us. And blue-crowned motmot, one of the bigger motmots. Beautiful bird too, really exceptional. Yellow olive-backed euphonia. Euphonias are in the tanager family also. Olive-backed euphonia. And the beautiful green honey creeper. So this guy is the green honey creeper, and yet the male here is turquoise blue. Beautiful, but not green. So why do they call him green? Because the female is green and a rather unusual shade of green. I don't know too many birds that have that shade of green. Pretty family of birds. Back almost to the veranda, when we saw this big slaty-tailed trogon. These are probably over a foot long. They're very, very big trogons. Handsome. Okay, so that afternoon we found the keys to the vehicles, and we did a little birding back out in Gallon Jug. Marvin found us a big giant cowbird. These are big birds, about the size of a great-tailed grackle or boat-tailed grackle, but without the long tail, of course. Northern rough-winged swallows. We have one place here in the villages where they nest each year. Not real common otherwise here in Florida. Ruddy ground dove is a pretty bird, and I didn't ever think I'd get one in our North American life list. This last summer I was in Arizona and picked up a ruddy ground dove for my ABA list. And finally I get a picture of one of the parrots. We had been seeing these parrots all week of the different species, but they were always flying over or too far away or something. Finally I get this red lord parrot on the last day. So we're driving back to the compound, and it's rather dark, or getting dark, it's deep dusk. And we stopped on the bridge over the Chanchich River, and Marvin said, let's wait and watch this tree. It's called a provision tree. And he said, every night the euphonias come in here to roost. Well, the words were no sooner out of his mouth than these yellow-throated euphonia began coming in. And I've seen birds go to roost many times, but I've never actually watched the process. He came in, he lands on a branch, he walks down the branch until he finds 2 or 3 leaves that he can sort of cuddle underneath, and he snuggles up and goes to sleep right in front of you. And this happened. We watched this over and over. It was fascinating to see these birds fly in and go to sleep. So at this point, Marvin said, I'm leading a night trip tonight. I have open spaces. Would you guys like to come along? Well, this is our last night there. What are we going to do back in the cabana except pack up? So we said, sure, let's do one more night trip. So we go back, and it's getting dark. Marvin runs to his cottage to eat something quick, and we run into the veranda to eat something quick. And while we're eating dinner, the truck pulls up, and the driver gets out, and he's testing the spotlight, and he shines the spotlight right overhead, and right over our heads in the veranda was this spectacled owl. And we hadn't even begun the trip yet, and we see maybe the best bird of the night trip. I don't think the driver spoke English. They just yelled at us, hey, 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 look up. And we see this beautiful spectacled owl. It's a shot I took in Panama of a spectacled owl. As I say, when you photograph them in the daytime, you see the details better, but it's nothing like seeing an owl at night. So we begin our night drive with Marvin. It's amazing what these guys can pick out. First thing he finds is a red-rumped tarantula. And then overhead, a vesper mouse in the trees overhead. And then crossing the Chanchich River on the little bridge, he has a Morlet's crocodile. Morlet's a Central American crocodile. This is a youngster, he's only about 3 feet, but even the adults only get to about 7 feet, smaller than our alligators and crocodiles that we have here in Florida. So here's a bird we had never seen before, Yucatan nightjar. And the amazing thing about this bird is, look at those big eye spots. It looks like big human eyes looking at us, but they're just eye spots right beneath his real eyes. And if I blow up on the face here, his bill is, his head is pointing down, and you can see the bill there. And on our left side, on his right eye, is actually the right eye over there. And underneath those eyes are these big human looking eye spots. Incredible how much they look like mammal eyes. Okay, we find another northern patoo. And then the mammal of the trip for us, an ocelot. And this guy was attracted to our spotlight. We watched him for 15 minutes. He was about 50 to 75 yards away, and he would walk back and forth, disappear for a while, and then come back out looking at us. And he was great, and we got great views of it. Unfortunately, I didn't know enough about my camera and photography at that time to get a good shot. If this were today, I would have gotten this shot, and I know more about how to handle this situation. But this was the best I could do at the time. So far in this show, every shot has been my own photograph. I haven't borrowed anything from the internet, but just because I owe you one for this ocelot here, I'm going to give you an internet photo. This, you can tell from the background, this was taken in a zoo, but I wanted you to see what an incredible, magnificent creature this is. Wow. I'm amazed every time I see it, how pretty they are. So we're heading back towards the compound, and he sees one more bird, vermiculated screech owl. And that's the last bird of the night, and really the last bird of our trip. Next morning, day 6 is breakfast and saying goodbye to our guides and our people that have taken good care of us all the time we were there. And so we're driven to the airstrip. Patsy had picked up someplace along the line, she had picked up this milk crate, and she used it as a stepping stool to get in and out of the van, in and out of his little airplane and everything. So we bring it there that morning, but here Mark shows up with a bigger airplane, and it's got steps, so Patsy doesn't need her crate. And also it means I'm not crunched in the back seat, and it was more comfortable for everybody. So we take off, and I'm a sentimental kind of guy. I look down at gallon jug beneath us and think of all the wonderful birds we've seen here in the last week. From the mottled owls and the laughing falcons and the groove-billed anis. It's been a wonderful experience. And our last view is of the Chanchich River and the lovely lush tropical foliage on either side. And we bid farewell to Belize and farewell to our Belize adventure. Thank you very much for your patience all this show. Turn it back over to Gary and Lindell.
Do you want to stop sharing and then we
Stop
can
share. Got got it. There we go. Okay.
Okay,
I still need a cheat sheet. You have to tell me.
Well, I don't
I
think
hope-
it took a whole lot of patience. That was wonderful. I was in rapt attention the entire time.
I hope I didn't take too long. That's about, I put a lot of slides in a show like that, but I try to keep it moving, just stop for occasional comments, here and there.
And you did stay awake.
I stayed awake, yeah. Well, I had that nap this afternoon between golf and showtime. I had a nap.
What time of year was this trip again?
March, I don't know that we picked it for any reason. It was March 7 through 13 or something like that. You do have I guess, I don't know what it is in Belize. I think in Panama, the summer is a rainy season, so you don't want to go too much towards the summer. In
Also,
Panama, you
another-
get into rain all the time anyway.
How big was that crested guan?
Yeah, they're pretty good size. I don't know. Remember, this big. I don't know what that is. About 20 inches or so, maybe. I'm guessing. They're large birds, interesting, different family. Chachalakas. I don't know if I mentioned it. The chachalakas are in the guan family. So we had two guans on our trip there: the crested guan and the chachalaka.
Beautiful photos. Thank you.
Sure. I was telling people beforehand, I improved all these photos in the last month or so by running them through some packages that called Denoise. A company called Topaz makes artificial intelligence packages that enhance photos, and these photos look so much better than they have since I took them from 2015 till now. They were nice photos, but running them through these sharpening and denoise packages, now they're really, some of them really look good.
Well, it looks like all of the chats, I didn't see any questions. Everybody just raved about the presentation. So I'll pass that along, but yeah, wonderful stuff. Now, does anybody have a question before we close up?
I
Yes.
did, Gary. Did you say Paul's got another trip that maybe he could present to us in the future?
Well,
I've got other programs.
he does, and that's why I was very anxious to have him speak, as a replacement now, so that we can get more of them in the next year or two. So if everything goes according to my plans, we'll definitely have Paul back soon.
Great, thank you. I would enjoy it.
I have one quick question, and that is, you decided to take an airplane from
Yeah.
Belize City. Is there a way to rent a car?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. And they told us that you could do public transit. There's a bus that runs out there. It's hours of agony on a bus, and I wouldn't want to rent a car and drive out to this place out in the middle of nowhere. It was expensive. I don't know. I think it was like 400 miles each way, or $400 rather, excuse me, each way. So, the better part of $1,000. But it was a convenience, but it was nice. And Mark swept us through the airport, got us on that airplane, and we were flying, and we were down at the other end in a half an hour. So, time is expensive on this trip. You don't want to lose time to transportation. So that was worth it, I think, for us. And Patsy got to sit in the co-pilot seat.
And
I was stowed with the luggage in the back.
Alan,
Good
check out the chat, Alan.
saw that.
share it. Yeah, yeah, very rough roads.
if you
I
if you're
would-
going to rent a car, it's going to sit all the time that you're
Oh,
on
yeah,
tour.
sure.
So I'm not sure you're gaining a whole lot.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't. And would cost you some money anyway, not as expensive as the airplane, but it would cost you time and
Yeah.
and possible expense. You know, you don't want to rent a car in Belize if you can help it.
Drop an axle on some rough
Yeah,
road.
sure,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Now, Paul, I saw someplace that you're quite the bird artist.
I do
Maybe-
some.
Maybe sometime in the future we could see a little of your work.
Here's a painting from Panama.
Oh, very
Vaudeville
nice.
Mott. This is one of my favorites, I think. This style of painting. This one's simple. Sometimes they get more complicated, but I like simple paintings like this. The bird and some mosses and ferns. I painted like crazy through 2020, the first year of the pandemic. I was knocking them out every week or two. And then about a year ago, it just dried up. I just can't seem to, when I get away from it, then it's scary. I'm so afraid to pick up a brush and try. And it takes me a while to get back into it.
Yes. Well, I think we've got everything covered. It's been a joy, and yes, I'll definitely get back in touch with you, and we'll have to have you back.
Thank you a lot, Gary. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you, everybody.